All right, welcome back to LWN Network, folks. We do have a live Wednesday Wolfpack for you guys today. And my special guest is going to be Dane White, right here from Boise, Idaho. He's actually my tool partner. I work with him each and every day, so he has to deal with me on a daily basis. So we have lots of great conversations at work. We talk about anything from religion, God, politics, geopolitics, what it's like to be a man, work, obviously, and a lot of stuff, sports included. So I figured I would invite him to the Alpha Show, to the Wolfpack. Neil is not able to join me tonight, and reached out to Joel to see if he could join me, and he's busy getting ready for vacation. So it's just going to be the dynamic duel tonight. We're going to have Dane join us here on screen, and this is his first time YouTubing, rumbling, any kind of social media, because you're not a big fan of social media.
No, I don't really do it, but thanks for having me on. This is exciting. It should be pretty fun, and yeah, I mean, I do have to deal with you all day at work, and so I should be getting paid for coming here and deal with you some more, but
some kind of incentive pay for sure.
Yeah.
I know that you've sent the links out to your family, but anybody out there that you would like to just say hello to before we get started tonight? And I know you got a lovely wife and 3 lovely, wonderful children out there, and I'm sure if they get a chance to click on that link, they'll be watching Dad tonight.
Yeah, we'll see if they hop on. I did just barely send it to them. I wanted to maybe see how this went first before I send it out.
You're a little nervous.
This is
all right.
Yeah. I don't do this every day, but
well, this is just like you got to flip the switch in your mind. This is just you and I having conversation like we do at work every day. We talk a lot. Some days not as much, but we talk about a lot of things. And tonight I want to cover. And I've covered this before in the show, but I did it with a couple of other of my friends. But I want to talk about what it's like to be a single man. And I really want to focus on a man and men, because nowadays you and I have conversation about how it's hard sometimes to judge who a real man is, or sometimes people get confused on if they're a man or a woman. We have those conversations a lot. We're also going to cover married life and what it's like to be in that type of a relationship and responsibility. And then we're going to cover what it's like becoming a father and our children, because our children are our most precious gifts that we have. And you and I talk about it all the time at work about, man, these kids nowadays, and we talk about our kids and what our kids are into and what they're doing. We have different backgrounds. We have a lot of similarities. I was raised in the church. You were raised in the church. I still believe that you probably raise your kids a little bit different than I do, but on some things very similar. So we're going to cover all that and more tonight, folks. We'll see how this goes organically, because that's the cool thing about Dane and I. We don't need a script. We honestly, we start talking about stuff and it just leads into more stuff, and we have some great conversations at work, and I wanted to capture that on the show because I think you guys will all enjoy it. So with that being said, I don't know. We can kick it off any way that you'd like.
yeah, we're probably not as productive as maybe our foreman would like, since we do talk so much about politics.
Hopefully they're not watching tonight.
But we get the job done.
We get the job done. And hey, that's one thing being a man, is we definitely take pride in our work. There are times where we'll put stuff up and Dane's like, I can't live with that. We gotta adjust it. We gotta tweak it. And then there are times he does most of the on hands in the air type of work, and I do the groundwork. So I'll bend the conduit, I'll hand him parts, I'll hand him tools, I'll cut things for him. So I have it's like life. I have a different perspective of the work that we install, and he has a different perspective because he's actually on the lift staring at it face to face. I'm looking from the ground up. And so there are times where I'm like, hey, that doesn't look right either. And he graciously will adjust things even for my taste. And that's how I really enjoy working with him, because it's not him trying to tell me what to do. It's not me trying to tell him what to do. We really, as two headstrong men, work really well together. And it's a team effort. And I know that my age and my physical limitations, Dane will always try to help me, and I do appreciate that about you, Dane. But I don't know, we just show up every day, we do our job, we have a good time doing it, and we have a few laughs here and there, and we have a few people that make us laugh, and some buddies of ours that help make the day go by, and it's just it's a great work environment. And so that's kind of our background. That's where me and Dane met, was at work, and we talk a lot about all these different topics. And so I'm excited to have you here tonight.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me. I still can't believe Boots is half black either, though. That's just crazy. So.
That is very unique, for sure.
That's what I thought of when you said people that make us laugh.
Yeah, we got Jed that makes us laugh, and we got Jay, we got Raymond that makes us laugh, and
Mike can never remember anybody's name. He calls them the wrong name all the time.
Oh, these guys are used to it. Believe me, I used to get people's name in chat wrong all the time, and people would correct me, so they're just used to it. All right, well, let's start off the show tonight with. I know it's been a long time since you've been single. Been a long time since I've kind of been single too over the years. I started dating. Probably at about 89, 1990, 91, somewhere in those 3 years is when and when I mean dating, I mean, you would flirt with girls in class and at school, and then there'd be a note pass type of situation and check yes or no. Might go to a dance with a girl, but it was never really anything super serious. It was more of the kid love stuff. And that was back in the way early 90s. I mean, things have really changed now. We're in 2025, and then rolling into high school. That's when I started high school, was early 90s, and graduated in early 90s. Things were still a little bit old school. We still had to go to the parents and ask permission a lot of times, and there was this whole respect thing. You really had to respect the girl you're dating, because
actually court her.
Yeah, court her and respect her, and if you didn't, she usually had older brothers or sometimes younger brothers or fathers that either approved or disapproved. So you're a good bit younger than I am. So how was it for you early years in maybe middle school, junior high, high school?
Pretty similar as far as like middle school, passing the notes, had crushes, didn't really have any long-term girlfriends. And in high school, I was partying, not really doing the right thing, trying to just date as many girls as I could, stay unattached. Had a couple little bit longer term girlfriends, but tried to make my way out of there to not be too attached. But the only time I would say really fully invested in a woman is the one that ended up being my wife. We started dating shortly after high school. But yeah, I was high school, I was on the wrong path, just partying, living for myself, and just mostly seeing women as kind of what I have a good time with them, what I could get out of them, and not valuing them as a daughter of God that needed to be respected in the way you were talking about, of actually courting them, talking to their father before you take them out on a date, and just treating them with the respect that all women should, that I want my daughter to be treated like. But right, yeah, the culture now is so much different. Even since I was in high school, it's crazy. I mean, they'll start the opening salvo with like sending out a self nude or something. It's crazy. It's so sad. My wife was a cheerleading coach at a high school, and she overheard the girls talking, and like all of them, like but one, had sent out nude pics of themselves, and they were kind of teasing a girl because she hadn't done that. It was just made me feel sick. It's so sad.
That's the world we live in today, with the technology that is at everybody's fingertips. And I don't want my daughter. I have three, and I have two older ones. That one, the oldest, just got married last September. Thank God that she found a wonderful husband. And my younger daughter, she'll get there someday. And then the youngest is 13. And geez, I worry about that. I stress out about that. And even the young men that we have, I worry about their dating and their courting and what type of women are they going to run into. It's not just one sided. It's definitely, you got to be concerned about the men and what women they meet. And you got to be concerned about the girls and what kind of boys they're going to meet. Now, let me ask you this question, Dane, and this is why I love having the conversations with you, because it always stirs up some questions in me. Do you feel like young people become, well, let's just talk about the boys. Do you feel that boys become men sooner now, or do you think we became men sooner in our era because of the respect and the things that we were taught versus what kids get taught today or what they see on social media? Do you think it hinders their maturity level progressing at a normal speed or quicker speed or less? What's your thoughts?
I think they mature way too quickly in all the wrong ways. Like, as far as the things they're exposed to, as far as like of a sexual nature, just being exposed to the world way too soon, and before they're ready for it, and they're way less mature in the most important ways, like learning a work ethic, how to treat people with respect, how to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand, how to go and have a conversation with a father and a mother and introduce yourself and ask, for your permission to take their daughter out on a date, and let them know what time you're going to have them be back, and living up to your word, being honest, telling the truth even when it's hard, but too mature or, too exposed to worldly things before they're ready for it. And that can be really debilitating for a kid because, childhood, you're supposed to be kept innocent for a reason, because you need to be exposed to those type of things in the time that I believe God intended you to be, as you're maturing into an adult. And if you get it too early, I think it's just super damaging.
Well, we're going to get into our children, and we'll talk more about that in detail in the last segment of tonight's show. But I definitely agree with you that I don't feel like they mature in the areas that we're talking about where they become men, say at age 20. I think it's actually slowed their development where they don't even become a man until like 30 because of all the technology and all the stuff they're subject to. I really think it stunts their maturity growth. That's my thought on it. But we're going to shift gears here, and I want to go to the married life because, I mean, you've had a good go at it, and I've kind of been on and off again, and through a couple of relationships, so I haven't had a solid marriage by any stretch of the means. And I mean, I stayed committed. I've been in committed relationships for over 8 years, but it was never full on. There wasn't a marriage license signed. Let's just put it that way. And so we kind of have two different perspectives. But as we're talking about being a man and being men, that is something that, if you believe biblically, it says that, a man shouldn't live alone. We shouldn't be alone. God made us a helper's mate, and I want to be clear on that. It's a helper's mate. It's not a slave. It's not somebody who does whatever the hell we tell them to do and give us whatever we want when we want it. I mean, they're supposed to be our helpmate. They're supposed to be our partner. We're supposed to be the head of the household. We're supposed to lead our family. It starts with our wife, right? It starts with our significant other, with our nowadays you say partner, and that's a whole nother show. We talked about a little bit of that today. We won't get into that part. But what I mean by partner is I don't mean a partner of the same sex. I mean, that's our partner. That's somebody that we work together to build a home. That's somebody we work together to raise our children. They're our partner. They're our helpmate. They're our lover. They're our, mother of our children, our wife. I mean, all different types of hats that women have to wear. So let's talk about your marriage for a minute. You said that you met your wife right out of high school, and in our conversations, you said you actually knew her in high school, so you've known her most of your life.
Yeah, middle school actually is when I first met her.
and you were an athlete and you got into some trouble, you were partying and doing things. And let's skip all that part. We're gonna fast forward to where she did want to date you, and you guys decided to become serious, and she waited for you for a while, and you came out and met her. And so let's pick the story up from there. You came back from a time of being gone, and she was very serious about you, and she waited for you, and that's a very strong woman.
Yeah, it's a rare thing nowadays for sure. And just going off what you were saying about how man's not meant to live alone, and I could say that for sure in my own personal experience. The trajectory of my life before and after I was seriously committed to my wife, and not just living for myself and living for her because she was relying on me. My life has gone in an upward trajectory since. And because I think men are meant to take on responsibility, and we're meant to shoulder a load and to take care of and protect and provide for people. And when you don't have that and it's just yourself, I mean, we will do a lot of bad things to ourselves that we wouldn't do to others, especially the ones we love and care about the most. And so my marriage has been an amazing blessing to me. We've been just had our 12-year anniversary. We were together for about a year and a half or so before that. And yeah, she's awesome. We respect each other. We're a team, as you say, I'm the head of the household, but being the head of the household comes with a lot more responsibility than it does benefits. Like, they're supposed to follow you as long as you are deserving of that authority. If the man's not living in a way and leading in a way that commands and commands that respect and authority, then chances are then you're not going to receive it. And so I always see that when I read those passages in the Bible, it's much more incumbent upon me to live up to, rather than, hey, my family better get in line and do what I want to do. But yeah, it's just, being married is a blessing. Having a partner, someone to share the load with, to, bounce your ideas off with, share the struggles, and just, cook and clean. I mean, I'm not a cook. My wife's a great cook, and she takes care of the house. It allows me to excel in my career because I don't have to worry about a lot of the things that if I was single, I would have to.
Well, you were blessed with a good wife right off the bat, but I could tell you, even from personal experience, there are times where people get unevenly yoked and with the wrong person, which can take you the exact opposite direction, which is down and not up. I've experienced a little bit of that in my life, and it's not a pleasant place to be. So, men, just like women, have to be very cautious on who they decide to choose as their partner. And I know that's something that we've really been working hard on our children, talking about to them lately, is you really got to pay attention to that, because who you choose can either help you excel or can really drag you down. And it can be even in the legal realm of things, where they get you in trouble, you're getting in trouble together, and bad things happen and bad consequences for those type of choices. So as far as my relationships, I had all the intention in the world to stay and create this wonderful family, but in my cases, there was just too much that couldn't be reconciled, and too much that that we weren't together on. And I think in talking and having this conversation with you, I think the most important thing in a man's life, let's talk about the man, is you have to, this is my own perspective, I feel like the man has to have a relationship with our Heavenly Father first, before he could ever have a relationship with a woman. And I've made that mistake plenty of times in my life. But when I finally put God first, that really changed a lot of my outlook, perspectives, and people that I would choose to be a mate. Because without having him first, because he's the one ultimately that's guiding you and I. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you feel about that. I don't want to talk for you. I want you to be able to articulate that to the audience yourself. But that is a huge thing. And I feel like if you don't have a man who is solid in God, then it's really hard for the family that he creates later in life, first taking a wife and then second procreating. It can really bust a family up. And we need to, well, I feel like we need to always build our home on the rock, which is Jesus Christ and our personal Lord and Savior. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to you there, Dane, because I know you got plenty to say.
Yeah, you're speaking my language there for sure. I mean, it's the man at the head of the household under God. And
so you don't believe that a woman should ever be head of the household?
No,
I'm hearing you.
I mean, certain if there's no man, if you're, a widower or things like that, I mean, the woman's there is going to be a leader one way or another. Ideally, in the way God designed it, is to have the man at the head of the household under his authority. And that's what, when I was speaking earlier about how, you command that respect and obedience from your family by living up to God's standard, not your own standard of what the man deems to be, lay down the law of the house. It's like, no, God's already told you how you should live and the way in which you should go and what's incumbent upon you, and that's the standard by which you should be judged upon. And you're right. I mean, as much as a good marriage can be a blessing to you and help you succeed in your life, jumping into a bad marriage can drag you down just as fast. I've worked with guys, I've had tool partners that were going through divorces, and they're about as worthless as you could imagine. So distracted, so depressed, not, their mind's not on their work, and they've, hurt themselves in their career that way. And let alone usually, throw in a DUI here and there because you're drinking too much. I mean, it is not a good thing. I mean, this is why your number one priority, I believe, when you're picking a spouse, start dating someone, is do your values match up? Not sure. Obviously, attraction, being attracted to each other is important, but if your values match up and you guys are headed in the same direction, towards Jesus Christ and is following on that path, then, I would say, they say half of marriages end in divorce, but if you can, start your marriage on that same united goal of trying to stay on the narrow road, I would say above 90% of marriages can work out if you guys are both committed and, go into it with the fact that we're not going to get a divorce. No matter what comes our way, we're going to work through it together. But yes, under, your marriage, a man and woman under the authority of Jesus.
What kind of values do you believe make a strong and healthy relationship, marriage? And yes, there's no such thing as a perfect marriage or relationship, but I do believe that as long as both parties are, like you said, willing to never quit and always strive to reconcile and make things right, I think most marriages can and would survive. Now, there are select few that there are reasons beyond control that you could never reconcile, and I totally understand that. So
yeah, what kind
of values are you thinking make a very strong marriage? What kind of values do your wife and yourself share?
Well, one of the main ones is the way in which we're going to raise our children.
That's a big one.
That's a huge one because so many people get married and they don't actually talk about that, and they say, oh, this is America, we can have different views on things, and that's fine. We still get along great. But when all of a sudden those things will become very glaring in a relationship, if you guys don't see eye to eye, is when all of a sudden you have a kid, and now it's incumbent upon you to start teaching those kids things, and they're going to pick things up whether you're trying to or not, and whether you guys are on the same track about what you are going to teach those kids, and that you guys are on a united front in front of your children and not undermining each other in front of the children. And even if we disagree, like, hey, talk to me about that behind closed doors, not in front of the kids. Like, your kids pick it up and they know. I think we've talked about this before, when they think they can go get a different answer from mom.
Yep.
And all of a sudden now they're creating a fight between the two of you, and your kids are going to be happy, in my experience, if your marriage is happy. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, I tell my kids all the time, I love them so much, but their mom is my biggest priority. Like, I love her the most, except maybe Jesus, not maybe, but Jesus, and then my wife. And because their life goes to hell if our marriage starts falling apart. Everything about their life is dependent upon what my job, I can provide through my job, and what their mom does for them all day at home and keeping the house. And when that starts falling apart, the kids suffer for. I mean, how many, you've heard people talk about it countlessly about what their parents getting divorced, what that did to them, and how much it affected them.
Yeah, I have to say, with personal experience, being on the other end of that, where both parents disagree on how to raise children, how to discipline children, I'm gonna tell you folks right now, it is the worst place to be in a relationship when you guys don't share that ability to raise your children like-minded. If you have two parents that have two different ways of wanting to raise the kids or discipline the kids, it's not fun. And obviously that was part of the reason why I couldn't stay in that one, because it was tearing the whole family apart. It was tearing me apart. I didn't feel like a man, because I constantly was always having a woman think that she was head of the house and that she made the rules and she did all this. And I'm like, nah, it's not going to work for me. So that's one great value. And I totally agree with you. What's more that you guys share that you think make a strong marriage for morals, values?
Well, like I said, I've already heard me talking about Jesus, about what the foundations and what all the values are based on is biblical values in Jesus Christ. And after that, I feel like it becomes really simple, honestly. Like, life is not very complicated when you've been given all the answers to the test, and you have the Word of God, which tells you what you're supposed to do in almost every circumstance. And things that it doesn't address, you've been granted the Holy Spirit to be able to give you discernment. And you spend a little time in prayer and Word of God, talking with your spouse, and you'll end up going the right direction if you're earnestly doing that. But I would say being willing to let things go. Say yes. That we're not gonna just obviously grace. You have disagreement.
To me that's grace. You're exactly. Speaking of grace. I learned that in the last 4 years from friends of mine. And I tell you what, that, in my opinion, is one of the greatest gifts that I could give my wife, that I could give my significant other, my helpmate, because she makes mistakes. I make mistakes. And if I can extend grace in those littlest things that a lot of people look at and they argue about it, like, why? I agree with you on that 100%. Like, if you could learn to extend that grace to your wife, definitely the arguments and the fights probably go down 95%. I would guess, at least in my life right now, it is. Like, we don't argue about stuff. We don't have those spats. And I totally 100% agree with you. When I'm wrong, she doesn't correct me in front of those kids. She supports me, and then she takes me behind closed doors and says, hey, listen, I wasn't right. And then what happens is I'll go apologize to the child if need be. And same with her. If she is wrong, I do not correct her in front of our children. I will always have her back. I tell the kids that all the time. Always going to have her back. She is my number one. She is top priority for me, and then you kids under that, right? It's God, her, and then my children. But yeah, I don't. I've had the reverse of that. I know what it feels like, and it's not healthy for a marriage to have either parent, man or woman, have disagreements or correct one another or put any kind of wedge between them and the children that makes the children doubt the authority of the man. Mm-hmm. Nor should the children ever have any doubt put in their heads to doubt the authority of their mother. Because honestly, when we're at work, mom runs the house. Mm-hmm. Mom runs the house 24/7. Let's be honest. But obviously, when we're home, we want our children to obey the mother. And if not, then you get to deal with dad when we get home.
Yep, there's no quicker way to be getting a smack on the butt from your dad by disrespecting your mother, getting her upset. I mean, and that's as it should be, because...
And I think that's what true men do. True men not only show respect to their wives, but they enforce that respect through their children. And nowadays, Dane, I'm not kidding you. It sickens me to see family units where there's no respect between the husband and the wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to call them nowadays, and that the children run rampant through the house, disrespecting both. Neither parent stands up for the other parent, and I've seen that firsthand. I've lived that firsthand. I see it even now, and it's sad to see the family unit being broke down like that. It's not what God intended by any stretch of the means.
Yeah, I mean, your kids are going to model the behavior that they see from their parents. I mean, or if they're at a daycare all day, they'll model whatever behavior they're seeing from their primary caregiver. But the relationship that you guys have between each other is going to be, it's going to follow the way they treat each other. The kids, when they're playing together, or their mother, vice versa. I mean, and giving grace, that was a great point, because we're supposed to model grace. We got grace that we don't deserve. None of us deserve it. None of us earned our forgiveness. We got that through Jesus. And if he was willing to forgive me for some of the horrible things I've done, then how much of a piece of crap am I if I'm not willing to grant grace for small slights, little mistakes? And to your children, I mean, you saying that if your wife pulls you aside and said, hey, the way you handled that was wrong, whatever, and then you being willing to go apologize, that shows has a huge impact on your kids, I believe, because not only do you need to act out through your relationship with your wife how you're supposed to interact with and show love, but also just being willing to say you're wrong, and that, hey, I'm sorry, I make mistakes too, I overreacted in that circumstance, I wish I'd handled that better, can you forgive me? They're going to be a lot more willing to admit and not have the inclination to lie to you when they're caught doing something wrong, or maybe preemptively tell you, just showing humility, granting grace when they do something wrong, and being willing to apologize when you overreact or handle something wrong. I think that's huge, and it's modeling Christ-like behavior to your kids. And the father is supposed to be the representative of God the Father to their kids. That's the closest relationship that they have at that, before they can really conceptualize what God is. Your dad is Superman. He's so, and if you are not taking that responsibility seriously and trying to do the right thing and follow biblical values, then they're going to see the way you act. If you're treating their mother with disrespect, you're yelling at her, you're not willing to say sorry when you do things wrong, or admit your faults, or even just say, I'm not the true standard. God is the standard that I'm trying to live up to, and I fall short of that sometimes. They're gonna say, hey, my dad, he's awesome. He never says sorry. Why should I? Or he, not admit mistakes.
Yeah, that's just something I've learned over the years, and my relationship with our Heavenly Father has definitely helped me develop the humility and the grace, because honestly, that's how I look at it. I don't deserve grace. I really don't. I've done things in my life I'm not proud of, but when I was learning this a few years ago, I'm like, man, who am I? Who am I really? Well, with the exception of Sprinkler Boy, who am I to deny forgiveness and grace to anybody, really? Mm-hmm. And that's a joke. But,
yeah, I know.
It's just I've just learned. I feel like I've finally, in the last 4 or 5 years, have really come into my own as being a man, and that's something on this particular show, The Wolfpack, that we really want to emphasize is, what is it like being a man? What do men do? How do they act? How should they act? How should they treat their wives? We're talking about that tonight, and I think it's important for young men. Who's the guy, the bald-headed guy? Not me, but the bald-headed guy, really famous, who's always talking to young kids nowadays. Very, very popular.
Bald-headed guy.
What the heck? Man, I know Kristen knows the name. Not Dr. Phil. Not Dr. Phil. He's very, very famous. Anyway, he's always constantly talking to young men about being a man, and he's not the most perfect example of what I would consider
Are you talking the guy that got charged in?
No, it's not. It's Anthony. Is it Anthony? I'm horrible with names. He's a YouTuber. He's a social media guy. Dang it, I'm gonna have to Google it real quick. But anyway, my point is those are the type of people that are trying to show and teach our young men how to be a man. And I feel like it's always the father's job, right? Not all fathers can be in the homes. Not all fathers are good fathers. Not all fathers are good examples of men or how to become a man. They fall short. They're human. I get it. But I really think that that's something that is major lacking in the home today. Mothers are not teaching their young ladies how to be young women, and fathers are not teaching their young boys how to be men.
Are you talking about Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tate. Yeah, that's the one. Andrew Tate.
Didn't want to interrupt you, but I thought you were talking about someone who was a good example. But if fathers aren't modeling that behavior, if they're not getting a good example and teaching your son what you're supposed to do as a man, they're going to go to people who are bad examples of it. And because they're willing to say some true things that resonate, just at a young man's core about, hey, when they're constantly getting preached about toxic masculinity, defer to women all the time, and in their heart they know that that's not right, because we're all made in the image of God, and we have a visceral response to when you hear true things and say, well, he's willing to say something that I feel like I know to be true, but then he's also saying a lot of destructive things as well, like, oh yeah, don't get married, you don't get anything out of it, just run through as many women as you can, treat them like crap, and they'll want to come back to you because women, they love being degraded and beat down. But hey, he was willing to say this one true thing and to not tell me to tamp down my masculinity. And so now I'm going to listen to him on all these other things too. Mm-hmm. And so it's crucial that at least, even if a kid does not have a father home, that they have some sort of positive male role model, a coach. That's why sports are so important, because young boys that don't have a good father home, or they're single mother, or their dad's working all the time and he doesn't engage with them, at least to have somebody that on a day-to-day basis is modeling how to be accountable, how to work hard and not let your teammates down, and trying to infuse in some life lessons in there to just show, hey, this is what a man's supposed to do. I'm accountable to something. I need to hold up my end of the responsibility. I need to admit it when I'm wrong. I need a shoulder responsibility, not go and try and avoid responsibility at all costs, and try and go see if I can accomplish something in this world, because that masculine energy is going to go somewhere. And if it doesn't go in a positive direction, then that's when you get true toxic masculinity of, that's what gangs are. They're masculine, they're tough. You disrespect me, I'll beat the crap out of you or shoot you, or I'm going to sell drugs, make money. It becomes the survival of the fittest. It's Darwinism out there. I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger, I have a bigger crew behind me, so I'm going to take what you have. But and it will. That's how this world operated for a long time before, Jesus died for our sins. Before we got into a modern world, it was, the bigger, stronger, tougher guy was the one that was the leader. Yep. And he preyed on weaker people. Women and children were at the whim of men, brutal men that take advantage of them however they wanted.
Well, I'm going to give you one last chance to give us any kind of moral or value that your wife and yourself share, and then we're going to roll into the last segment, which is being a father, becoming a father, what it's like becoming a father, and how we do raise our children. So is there any other thing besides grace, respect, that you want to share tonight with the audience that you and your wife really have in your little basket of things that are important to you in your marriage?
Yeah, well, I would say, going off of what we were talking about, the way in which you treat their mother, that's I read somewhere and it really resonated, rang true with me, is that the best way to ensure that your daughter ends up with a good man is to show what a good man is like to their mother. They are going to naturally go and be drawn towards a relationship like what they saw growing up. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky. I have an amazing father that treated my mother with respect, and he was there. And I was a relationship, and I had friends that were always in relationship. They were fighting all the time, and they kind of loved that. They're fighting and making up, and it was exciting. But that was so unappealing to me because I had seen what true love and a great relationship was like through my parents, and that made me want to choose a woman that was I could engage in that kind of relationship with, and then a woman that a girl that grows up under a strong father that treats their mother with love and respect is not going to put up with a guy that starts to degrade her or be controlling or abusive. And then the last thing is just, I would say, any way that you can just be present, engage with your children, just show that you're interested in spending time with them. Sometimes I don't feel like it. I get home, we're working 10 hours, it's hot outside. Maybe I'd rather just chill out, cool down. But I'm only, when I'm working 10 hours, I only have, maybe 4 or 5 hours of waking hours with my kids. And I'll get the pull on my heart. Okay, I need to go out, go do something. Let's go to the park. Let's go play catch. Let's play a board game. Just show them that, they're hungry for that attention and that love from you because you've been gone all day and they love you. You're their father. And that's what I personally just try and do. I could do it a lot better, but when I have opportunities to just go do things with them, spend time with them, just show that I love them and that they're a priority for me. And in any way I can do that, that's what I try and seek to do. Like this last weekend, the 2 older kids were off at church camp, and I had an opportunity to go take my youngest up camping, go do that, and it was awesome. I had a great time. You never regret it. We had fun, made some great memories. My little guy got to really fish for the first time, spent a lot of time on the water fishing, and he had a great time, and now he just won't stop bugging me about getting his own fishing pole, so we got to do that, but he's got to earn it.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about I appreciate you showing up tonight, Dane, and having this conversation. I hope it's not the last. I really hope that you enjoy doing this and that when your family gets an opportunity to rewatch this, that they really enjoy your time here too. Let's talk about what it was like becoming a father for the first time, and how nervous were you? How scared were you? And I'll talk about my experience too, because I had a wonderful experience becoming a father, and I love my children. I love all of them, and being a father is probably the best thing in the world besides, being with my partner and being the significant other in her life and being her protector and her provider and her counsel and just all the things that it's like being a husband position. Being a father is like the next best thing. And like you said, if we're supposed to be that godly image for our children before they understand who God really is and the crucifixion and salvation and grace, then that's like the most important time in their lives. So how did you find out that you were going to become a father? About how old were you? And what were you feeling at that time?
Oh, I think I was 23 years old. Me and my wife had been married for, less than a year at that point. And we knew that we wanted to have children. I was thinking, maybe we'll wait, just enjoy the married life a little longer. My wife was really anxious to start having kids. That's all she's ever wanted to do was be a mom, yeah. Which is one of the things that really drew me to her. She's not the modern feminist, like, hey, I'm going to have a career, I can have it all. She's always wanted to be a mom and homemaker, and that was exactly what I was looking for. I didn't have much money, and I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to, take care of everything, but I knew that was, if I could make it happen, that was exactly what I wanted, was to have my wife at home with the kids. But anyways, yeah, so when we decided, okay, yeah, let's try, and so got pregnant really quick. I was hoping to maybe try for a little longer.
How'd she break the news to you?
Oh, she's not very good at keeping any secrets. I think she had some idea to do a surprise, but pretty much right when I came walking in the door, I just could tell something big was going on, and she, I'm pregnant, showed me the stick, and then showed me 2 others because she had, had to, of course, confirm and reconfirm, and I was excited. I was thrilled. Like, I've always wanted to be a dad. I grew up in a big family with 6 kids. It was awesome. I love having siblings, and I think you can just learn so much just having siblings, having to learn how to compromise and share and fend for yourself in some ways. Your siblings are gonna, hurt your feelings and, hurt you, but you just gotta, learn how to toughen up and deal with it. My older brother's toughened me up a lot, and I was thrilled about it. Honestly, I was excited. I was nervous because I did not really have a great, a great career at that point, but I would encourage anybody, if you have the right woman, that that this is the person you want to be with, don't wait and get married. I think another thing, like we were talking about the marriage, is when you can grow up together, it makes things a lot easier. I really believe when you guys have both lived on your own as adults, different ways of just the small things, like what you do in the bathroom, how you organize things, when I like to wake up and share. If you do those things together and you learn to live on your own and things together, it makes those things so much more simple, because that's just kind of all we've almost ever known, my wife and
I agree with that. And I have another friend that says the same thing. She's like, I think kids should get married at a young age, not wait until they're 30. They should get married at 18, right out of high school, 18, 19, 20 years old, and have that time. Hopefully, I mean, it doesn't always happen that way, but have that time where they can kind of grow up together in the marriage before they start having kids. And if they have kids early, great. I think they should have kids earlier than 30. Now, I didn't have my first child until 29. Like I waited. I was older. I wasn't really mature enough, but I probably would have matured a lot faster having a child sooner in my life as well. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my wife. I didn't find the right person until then. And then I wanted to have kids, and it was like, I'm 29. I mean, all my other friends already had kids that were 10, 10, 11, 12 years old. Some of them had kids in high school in the wrong way. But I mean, I shouldn't say that because I don't want to offend anybody, but obviously
it
not
is the wrong way.
Not the way that it should happen. And so marrying young, I think, has more advantages and benefits to it than waiting till you're older.
Yeah, I mean, all of that's incumbent upon having the right person, that meet all those kind of criteria, the values and stuff. But as much as getting married helped me start heading in the right trajectory in my life and grow up and not be so selfish, having a child was that on steroids, because now you have a little human being that's completely dependent upon you. That child will die if you guys aren't doing the right things. And it made me just focus on what I needed to do to get into a career path with a future,
So your daughter is the oldest, right?
No, she's the middle one.
She's the middle. So you had a son first. So did you go to all the doctor's appointments? Because I sure did. I went
on
to
the
every
first one. Oh yeah, I was at everyone. And then as the kids
tell me how you felt. Tell me how you felt the very first time they put that
ultrasound.
No, the other thing where they do the heartbeat. When you got to hear your son's heartbeat for the very first time, how did you feel?
Oh, I felt awesome. I felt emotional. It made it really feel real. A little bit overwhelmed. You have the moments of self-doubt, like, am I ready for this? Can I be the type of person? And keep in mind, I was not very far off from just being in a much different place in my life to where, anybody would have looked at me and be like, that he should not have kids, But so I was like, am I going to ruin this?
I think sometimes our own parents look at us and say, you probably shouldn't have kids.
All right. But if you're a man of integrity that wants to do the right thing, I mean, I feel like that's half the battle, is like, I'm going to do my best to try to be a good father. And you really mean that, you'll rise to the occasion, because we're meant to have kids. That's that's the greatest thing you'll ever do. I don't care if you have $1 trillion company, you're Jeff Bezos, and you're, everybody buys everything from you. There's nothing more important and impactful that you'll do than having kids and raising. It can either have a negative effect on the world because you abdicated your responsibility and didn't model all those things, or it can have an amazing impact on the world, because children are a blessing. They make the world a better place, and being able to raise a soul that's made in the image of God and teach them the right way and show them the cross and what Jesus did for you, and help plant that seed to help them find and follow Jesus is, that's the best thing you can ever do.
I know when I heard my daughter's heartbeat for the very first time, I got super emotional. I couldn't believe that I actually was a part of that. Like, I actually helped create that. And then, she was almost born in the floorboard of a Toyota Tercel. I think it was a Tercel. It was just a little 2-door coupe. It wasn't a 4-door. Almost born on a floorboard there. Man. Because they always told us in the classes and everything, oh, when you have your first kid, you're gonna have those Braxton Hicks, and you're gonna think
don't
that
rush to the hospital.
Don't rush to the hospital. Well, we did the first time, right? We thought we were having a baby. We went to the hospital. No, not this time. So we waited longer the second time, and the second time it was close. Like, she was crowning as soon as I got her in the parking lot of the hospital. That's
Dang.
how close we were.
That's crazy.
So, but I remember that moment when she came into my life, when I got to see her for the very first time. I'm telling you, man, there is nothing in this world, nothing that compares to that moment when you get to see your child for the first time. And talking about our relationship with Christ, it has to be the same for him too, and for our Heavenly Father. When you understand grace and the resurrection, and you give your life back to Christ, or you give your life to Christ for the first time. I've gone back several times, but when it's done for the first time, I couldn't imagine how emotional he gets for you making that choice. And so that's how things correlate for me. How does it work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the reason why a lot of people open their mind up to God after first having children, because I don't know how you could watch your child be born and not say that this didn't just happen by accident. This didn't just randomly, just through universe and energy and whatever. And now, this is the miracle of childbirth, and that a woman can carry and grow a child in their belly, and you can watch it be born, and that's part of you. It's just, it's amazing. It's so powerful. Just getting to see your child and how the instant love that you just can't really explain to anybody else. And it's just such an awesome, amazing experience, and it does show you a little bit of the face of God and how beautiful His creation is, and I think of how God intended and wants it to be eventually when Christ does return and gets rid of all the sin and chaos in the world. Is that little moment of first getting to hold your child and sit there with your wife and just see just the majesty of it's pretty awesome. But before I forget, I wanted to give you props, because speaking of being a father and a man and different types of families, how you've been able to step in with having taken on teenage boys as your stepkids, and I would never know except if we hadn't had the deep conversations that they were not your biological children. The way which you think about and invest time and energy and agonize over how the best way to handle struggles that you're having with them, and wanting to help them learn and grow and become a good man. And and you're taking on, anytime you're coming in late into a child's life, you're taking on baggage of the way what another man has done raising, or the lack thereof, and you treat them and talk about them as your children, which you should, which I think is awesome, which you should, because when you're marrying a woman, you're taking on not all of her, and she's got these kids, and that how you've embraced that and see, and how much joy you get out of seeing them grow and take new steps and kind of shoulder a little bit of responsibility and see the pride that they have when they succeed at something, and that gives you pride. And I just give you props for that, because not everybody is humble enough to be able to do that, and to separate the fact that, hey, these kids were created with somebody else, but how you were just so ready and willing to step in and be that good, positive role model and be their father, I think is pretty cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I have help in that department with their mother, but our children are, like I said at the beginning of the show, our greatest assets. And if we don't invest in them, then the world takes them from us. And those are other conversations we can have as well. This doesn't have to be the last one, but this whole show is about teaching young men how to become men, what it's like to be a man. And so that does bring me joy when they hit those accomplishments, and they're always willing to learn, and they're always willing to put in the hard work. And we'll get to that either later in this show, because there is one story I want to share, and I know you know which story that I want to share, because it's pretty crazy. The project that I gave them, and I'll save that till the very end, because I want to continue down this path of us becoming fathers. You know, first steps, first words, multiple children. You're raising 3 wonderful children now. So speak a little bit about what it was like to see their first steps, hear their first words, bringing in a second and a third child into your family.
Oh, it's great, man. I mean, you almost get to experience your own child and what it's like to be a kid again. That, you know how people these days, they say, oh, you know, I'm adulting. They're like 30 years old and they're like bragging because they paid the bills, and they perpetually want to be a child and go to theme parks and never, you know,
I would like that life.
rejecting taking on responsibility and being those the weirdos that love to go to Disneyland and all those theme parks without any kids, and they got all the shirts and the ears on, like. And my mother-in-law is that way, and I tease her about it all. She's a Disney fanatic, but anyways, that's beside the point. But you get to do all those things when you're a father, and you get to do that with your own children, and it's not weird that you're there, because you're there being a dad, experiencing that with your children and watching them experience new things is one of my biggest joys in life. Just getting to show them. I was just trying so hard to help my son get a fish, because watching him catch a fish, he got a net one for one of the other kids caught. But it's awesome, you know. It's like you get to experience your first fish that you caught. You get to watch them see the ocean for the first time, or go on a rafting trip and experience the power of a river, and how small and insignificant you feel in it, and you get to experience that with them and through their eyes, and watch them grow and see how wide and big the world is one of my favorite things to do. I love getting to take them to do new things. I push them hard to not chicken out, trying things. And my wife, you don't need to, if they're scared, don't make them. Like, no, I know they're going to love this. They just need to get over that fear. I don't want them to miss out on this opportunity,
Self-growth comes from being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's what I tell my kids all the time. When you're uncomfortable, you're growing. You can't stay in that bubble of security. You got to step outside of that and experience new things. You might hate it, you might fall in love with it, and you might really enjoy it. But to get that experience of growth by being uncomfortable is a huge thing for me and my family.
Oh yeah, 98% of the time they're always, oh, that was cool. That wasn't as scary. If they
talk about your youngest one riding a sheep real quick.
Oh yeah, so he got a mutton bust a couple weekends ago when we were up in Bear Lake. Went to the little Paris, Idaho rodeo. And I mutton busted, and I'm famously a mutton bust champion. So that's one of the legendary stories in our family, because you win this huge 5-foot tall trophy. I look tiny standing next to it, but so I've always wanted to get my kids in rodeoing. But the one I did, it's the Preston Night Rodeo, which is a lot bigger rodeo, and it's harder to get into. You got to show up to sign up at a specific time, and they only let so many in, and we don't live there, so it wasn't easy. So anyways, had this opportunity, hey, my little brother was like, hey, they said we can just go sign them up for mutton busting and they can do it today. And I'm like, oh, because he has a son that's the same age. They're best buds, Weston and Briggs. So we went and hurried, and we were up the lake, by the cabin in the lake, and he was just in shorts and so I had him just throw some sweats on. They're all slick, and we went down and signed him up. And it was funny because there's all these little cowboy kids in their chaps and button-down shirts and jeans and boots, and they had their little rope to tie around the sheep, and our boys were just in a little dirty hoodie and short. Their hair really messed up, but yeah, so it was pretty cool. He was nervous about it, but also excited. He's a bit of a showman and likes to have an audience, so having a crowd there, and he was tough about it. Normally, when you get into the chute and you got to get the sheep cornered and they got to climb over and get on the sheep, most kids kind of panic for a minute, okay, no, I'm just kidding, I don't want to do this. But he didn't. He was set him on there, and he bear hugged it, and he made it about 20 yards out of the chute, and then before he got bucked and kind of stepped on, but he was tough about it and really loved having all the rodeo queens come over and high five him and say, "Oh, you're so brave. That was awesome." And after that, he was ready to, and he's been asking me, he's like, "Hey, he was asking me, is there another radio that we can go to?" I'm like, "Radio? What do you mean radio? Like, you talking about the Alexa?" I'm like, "No, rodeo, to ride the sheep." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." So I think we're going to try and go do the council rodeo. You were telling me about that. So I think we might at least get him on another sheep this year. He had fun with it, and I think see if we can get him a trophy.
That's awesome, and that's being part of a dad is encouraging, being there to pick them up. When they get bucked off, when the world knocks them down. That's what I tell the boys all the time. I say it's not about how hard you get hit when you get knocked down. It's whether you can get up or not, and getting up and still moving forward. I know that was kind of a line from Rocky too, but I still say the same thing, because it's important that our children know, and that's probably one of the biggest gifts I've given to my youngest son, Noah, is the gift that he's seen me get knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, but yet instead of dad curling up in a fetal position and being super depressed and can't work and only wants to watch movies all the time and can't really function as a father or even a provider, he's at least got that from me to where he sees that dad has never given up. I've always got up, brushed myself off, and said, "Well, that hurt. I'm going to do it again. I'm gonna make this work." And I've never ever given up. And that's the one gift that I've given to him. And I want to talk about the story of the two older ones here in a minute, but being a father, it's so important for us to show all of our children, not just the young men, but the ladies too, that life's hard, and we get to live through them. You're into sports, I'm into sports. I played at a high level of sports, and whether my son ever makes it to that level or not, I encourage him and will enjoy the time that we get to spend together in doing that. He's really getting into a few things. And so I'm excited for that. My daughters played, high school sports, and they played soccer and they played softball and volleyball, and I got to go see those games and kind of live through that a little bit, but not like a son, right, who's going to play the same stuff that you play. Mm-hmm. And so it's wonderful to be there in those moments, because I missed a lot of moments with my daughters because I was on the road working a ton, and so I didn't get to share all those moments that I share now, and that's, for me, this is like my second chance. This is my chance to redo what I didn't get to do with my two oldest ones, because I was just constantly on the road trying to make a living, and that was a hard time for us back after the recession. So, it's exciting for you to get to do that with your son. And then you can talk about the other two real quick, and then I want to tell my story, and then we'll kind of roll into final thought.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sports are so much fun, getting to watch your kids compete. And I'm lucky, my boys, they like the same sports I did. I was always a little worried, like, oh man, I'm going to have to learn how to get into enjoy choir concerts or something if my kids don't like the same things I do, but they do, and I feel like a lot of times they do, because they love and respect you so much. But especially my oldest, he's a pretty darn good athlete, loves football the most. He wrestles too, but he doesn't love wrestling the same way he loves football. But he's a good athlete, and he has success at it, and he can get a little bit full of himself sometimes, thinking that he's just maybe always going to be the best one on the team, and I'm trying to tell him, like, there's always someone more athletic than you, faster, bigger, stronger. Like, the only way you're going to achieve the goals that you want to get to is if you learn to outwork everybody. That's the one thing you can control, is how much work you put in. Are you going to put in extra time? Are you just going to do the practices? Are you going to do a little bit extra? Are you going to practice on your own time? Are you going to study all those things? Because you can control that. I mean, you've been blessed by God with some good athletic abilities, but there's tons of good athletes that never achieved anything, or they ruin it through their own bad, choices and getting in trouble. So trying to just always, enjoy the successes with them, celebrate with them, and then encourage them to say, hey, look, build off that. keep working. Let's go out. I'll work you. Let's play catch. Let's run some drills together, because you're never gonna. And he's setting high goals for himself, but I'm like, that the prerequisite to that is you have to learn to work like a professional, not just think, hey, I'm great, I'm gonna be a professional.
Yeah. What about your daughter? What's your daughter
Leia.
enjoy doing?
Leia, she is her sport is cheerleading, like her mother. She, like I mentioned earlier, my wife was a cheerleading coach, but she does the travel cheer, which is it's a pretty big commitment. It's kind of a year-round deal. They take like a month and a half break during the summer, and multiple times a week, flyer training, stretching class, all. But it's a group sport, and girls are a little bit catty and even at a young age, gossipy and cliquey. And one thing I've been really proud of her is how she's very confident in who she is, and knowing that she's a child of God and does not let mean girl stuff bother her. She doesn't get involved, doesn't try and insert herself into the drama, just tries to be kind and loving. Obviously she's not perfect, and doesn't let mean girl stuff get her down or upset her or cry. She's hard on herself as far as doing well at her sport. Like, she doesn't feel her coach had to critique her too much. She'll get emotional in the car with my wife, and then to me be like, oh, it was great. Yeah, I just, she really can let her guard down with her mom, but she loves to cheer, loves to perform. And she's kind of, loves to ride motorcycles with the boys and do all those fun things. But yeah, she's a little cheer. She's her mini me of her mom and compete. But cheerleading is an expensive sport, and so she works hard, and she pays half of it. So for the season, she doesn't pay the travel, but it's about a little over $1,500 for a season. The uniforms and everything, and it's got a chart, mixed up with different amounts of money, and she does work around the house or work for grandparents, sells ice cream at Discovery Park, things, and works it off and pays for half, so that way she doesn't take it for granted, and learns like, hey, if you're gonna do something that requires a lot of money, like, you're gonna be invested in it. That's something I learned from my parents. In order to go to wrestling nationals, I would worked all summer with my teammates.
Very healthy.
Paint barns, cut down trees, yeah. And so, yeah, she's a little hard worker and dedicated, and really sweet girl too. And just, yeah, daughters are such a blessing. They're so much more cuddly and loving, and I'm hard on. I try and hold her to the same standard as my boys, but she's so much more responsive when she's getting disciplined. It's like you can instantly tell how emotional, how she feels so bad and starts blinking, but trying to be tough. And I'm like, okay, come here, give me a hug. After I say what I need to say, the boys are more like act all angry, and it just makes me. I'm like, go to your room.
Yeah. Boys are definitely different than girls. My girls were actually pretty easy. My son tests me constantly. Definitely different style of parenting. All children need a different
and they're all
style.
unique too.
Yep,
I mean, even the boys, different boys are different challenges for sure.
Well, here's my little story before we roll into final thought. So I came to work. This was last month. I came to work. I was excited to tell you guys at work that, our two oldest boys got a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and the 16-year-old just got his driver's license. And they've really struggled knowing and learning what it is to like be a man. And so I've been a big part of that for the last 2 years, and just really focusing on giving them the best advice and the best stories, and just being there with them and trying to teach them how important it is to be responsible and how important it is to have a work ethic, and they're not exactly getting that in the other home, because that individual can't even hold a job, doesn't have a job. And so in our home, it's really hard because we're trying to teach them that, and they're not getting it from both homes. They're actually getting a not so good example. And so
consistency is so important.
So when they're here, I'm hard on them. I'm hard on all the boys. And so I challenged them earlier this summer, and I said, listen, here's your challenge. I'm going to pay for this weekend, but I want you boys to load up your camping gear, and I want you guys to take off and go camping by yourselves. Now, these boys have never done anything by themselves, honestly. And the camping spot that I chose was 2 hours away, which their mother and I, she was very concerned about the travel, but I said, have faith in these boys. I trust the oldest. He's a very responsible driver. He'll make it. And so part of the experiment also was for them to know what it was like to be hungry. I didn't want to send them with a whole cooler full of food, and I had to keep an eye on Mom because that's her boys, and she was wanting to send extra food. I'm like, nope. They get one package of hot dogs. They get a little bit of potato salad, a little bit of beans, and a bag of chips, and that's it. Because I wanted them to experience what it's like to be hungry. I wanted them to experience what it was like to be in a reservoir where there's fish that are catchable, to try to catch fish, to feed themselves, to fulfill that hunger. It was many different lessons. I can't even tell you all the lessons that I had in my head that I wanted them to learn, but just going on a trip by themselves was a huge lesson. To be able to find a camp is a huge lesson. To set up camp by themselves, and in the last 2 years when we went camping, to have 2 or 3 of them try to put a tent together was hilarious, because I had to stand over them the whole time to tell them how to do it, because they're always waiting for somebody to tell them how to do it.
They know you'll step in or
Correct.
cook,
But this time there was no dad there. There was no Mike there. There was no Mom there. There was nobody there but themselves. So that was a lesson, to cook their own food, which the second oldest is very good at cooking, and that's something he enjoys doing, and we do that together, him and I, and him and his mom, and so there was so many life lessons in that trip. It was just totally amazing. Now, some of you guys looked at me at work like I'm freaking crazy. What the hell are you doing that for? And some of the women in our circle were like, "Are you serious?" Yeah,
I was
serious.
all for it.
That's what it's going to do. And here was the ultimate goal. I wanted them to be able to go there and accomplish survival, and to be able to come back and know, we can do this. We can do hard things. And those boys came back with a different attitude. They came back with, wow, we survived. And it was not easy. The night that they left, their mom, their mom said goodbye, and it wasn't emotional. And I took them down to the store, got them their supplies, and then I forgot cash. So I had to have her come bring cash, because we needed to make sure they had emergency cash. They had a full tank, but just in case they needed anything, they had cash. And so when she showed up, then that's when she got emotional, because she had to say goodbye twice. Well, here comes this storm. And so she had to let those boys go in. They drove into a storm to go camping. They actually made it to the campsite late at night, so they slept in the car for the first night, and then got up the next morning and set their tent up, made camp, and then went fishing. And they found a hot springs, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
So they went exploring. They found a hot springs they got to hang out in. And anyway, it was a wild idea that I had, but I felt like it was an opportunity for them to advance one more step closer to being a man. And that is my job as their father, is to get them to that point, to be a man. And that's lacking in this world today. A lot of men check out. A lot of men leave the home and never come back. A lot of men don't pay child support and leave all the burden on the woman. There's men out there that take advantage of the women, and they want child support, and they don't do anything. They don't carry jobs. Like, the world today, I don't know if it's any messier than it was 150 years ago, 100 years ago, 75 years ago, when our grandparents were, building families and doing things. But man, I tell you what, it's an ugly place, at least for me today. And I want to make sure that my children are as prepared as they possibly can to go out there and face the world with confidence and strength, knowing that they can do hard things. And I give my children hard things to do, so that when they accomplish those hard tasks that I give them, they have that sense of accomplishment and self-worth that, hey, I can do this.
No, I thought it was awesome, and it's a cool thing to do. I mean, it can sound a little bit,
Harsh,
cruel or harsh,
cruel.
like, oh, they've never camped, but I'm sure it gave them a sense of pride and accomplishment and confidence in themselves. Like, hey, I can figure things out. You see it at work. You just get a new task, something I've never done before. We talked about I've never done that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But just if you just know, hey, I can figure this out. I have a brain. I have some experience to fall back onto. I can figure it out. And that's huge, is to just know that, hey, I can go into, and because unknown situations are going to happen to you. You're going to get stuck in situations you didn't prepare for. But if you have had a father that puts you in difficult situations, helps you build the confidence to know, hey, I can, I have some experience to fall back on. I have a brain. I can figure things out and work my way through it. Is such a valuable lesson. And I think a lot of men think their number one priority is to provide for. And as long as I provide for my kids, they have a roof over their head, the food, I may even pay for their college, whatever, that's, as long as I do that, I did my job. But that is a part of your responsibility, but I think it's a smaller, kids grow up poor and they have great childhoods. They don't even know they're poor. Like, you provide their basic needs, but more importantly is to provide for them the knowledge of how to be self-sufficient, how to confidence, how to know their creator and who made them, and that they're bought at a high price, but to know that they can go out into the world and accomplish hard things, and to, the world's going to smack them in the face, whether they do it, it's self-induced or outside induced, but to know that, hey, this sucks. I'm in a bad situation here, but I can figure it out. And doing things like that, I think that helped them take a big step in that direction.
Yeah, and one of the coolest parts of their story is it stormed all weekend. It was not great weather, and one day the wind picked up, and I think most people, not even just children, would just sit in the car and not face the storm, but the youngest son, and I can't remember if they told me both of them did it or just one of them did it, but I know for a fact that the youngest son, the storm was upon them and was getting ready to blow the tent away, and he went and he laid down in that tent and he kept that thing on the ground during the windstorm so that they didn't lose their tent. And that shows bravery and courage, that he was willing to sacrifice safety in a car to go out there and ensure that they didn't lose their camp, their home, their tent. And so they learned a lot of lessons. They learned a lot of lessons along the way. And, we've been really big on just giving them certain tasks to teach them that. I mean, I create workloads for them when they're off for Christmas vacation and Thanksgiving and all that stuff. They don't get to just sit around the house and play video games all week. I usually give them a task, like we've done things such as what college do you want to go to, and they have to do a report on it. What career do you want to maybe pursue? What would be a fun career? We have them do reports, and they have to do research, and they have to write a report, and then they have to dress up and stand in front of our family and give the report back to the family, so they get used to talking in front of people, because that's part of school too. Mm-hmm. You got to learn how to talk in front of people. And so we really just trying to help guide them, not force them, but guide them into thinking about, what does your future look like? What are your interests in your future that might turn into a career? And I've done things with them as far as like economics, and pick a apartment in Boise, and what does it cost for the rent? And let's figure out what your power bill is and what your phone bill, because some of these projects that we've given these kids as a parent, as a father, and as a mother, and we're trying to raise our kids and teach them how life really is, they're learning very valuable lessons like, holy cow, if I have a job paying this much and all my bills add up to that much, I don't have any money left over, when I get done paying all my bills. And I don't think kids get any of that sometimes until they actually leave the home and go to college and then go, holy shit, I'm getting $1,000 a month on my scholarship, and I can't even feed myself because all my other bills that I have to pay, my car payment, cell phone, internet, all this other stuff doesn't leave me much money left over for food. So they have to sometimes go get a part-time job, even in college. And so we're trying to teach our kids I give them different scenarios of life of, this is what it's like being in college. This is what it's like going to work right out of high school. This is what it's like if you have to work 2 jobs. This is what it's like if you have an expensive vehicle on a payment and a cheaper vehicle you can pay cash for. Roommates not. I give them all of those different scenarios on different projects that we do here in this home to really help mold them and give them that sense of knowledge. I'm really trying to imprint my knowledge and knowledge in them so that they understand what it's like before they get there, because I don't want them to find out once they get there, because damn it, that's too late.
Yeah, be intentional about the things that they're doing with some forethought and work ethic. I mean, that's one of the things I'm most thankful for that my parents did for me, even though at times I really hated it as a kid. We always had a chore list during the summer. You could not go out and do what you want to do, hang out with your friends, go play outside until you'd done your chore list. And I think, oh, my friends have it so lucky. They don't have to do all this stuff. I got, I have to get this done, or I'm going to miss out on this. But even when I was at my worst, had a lot of self-inflicted wounds, not doing the things I should have been, I always had a work ethic to fall back on, and I could keep a job because I could go to work and I could work a day. And I had my friends that I was jealous of that couldn't, didn't have to do any of that. They struggled hard when we were out on our own and having to try and pay rent and pay, they had been handed $50 every time they're going out, or $20 to go to a movie. And I was having to spend the money that I'd earned. I don't want to go movie. I had to work, pack concrete forms for an hour for that $10 for that movie. I don't think that's worth it, but so it makes you a little more frugal, and just always having that work ethic to fall back on, even when I was not doing the things I should have. I could keep a job. I could get a job because people, they'd be able to see, oh, this kid can work, and I'm willing to give him a job. And that is, it's huge. It can get you through a lot of tough circumstances if you can just work, even if it's maybe not the job you want, but if you know how to grind. Yeah, it's such a blessing.
And here's the thing: I don't think anybody's born with work ethic. I think work ethic is installed into you by your parents or your grandparents or your family, your friends, the circle that's most trusted that you're in. That is something I feel is learned and not just born like a gift. Now, are leaders born? I believe that. I believe that people are just born into leadership. But as far as a work ethic, that's something that you pick up from watching your mother, watching your brother, watching your father, watching your grandfather, and they're pushing you to do the same thing. And if you're not getting that, like you said, I have friends just like you had in high school that had a lot of shit just handed to them, and they struggled. They really didn't know how to hold down a job because they never had to. They had it easy. And now that you and I can look back on that, who really had it the easiest?
Yeah, you're not doing your kids any favors by doing that.
Because we had hard parents that taught us a lot of good stuff that when we get in hard situations, yeah, it's rough, we can get through it because we know how to work our way through it. Those people don't have it as good as because they didn't know how to do that. They struggled harder and sometimes failed a lot more than we did because they didn't have that. And so I think that we were lucky. I think we were very lucky the way we were raised.
Yeah, you're not. I say the same thing about helicopter parenting, where it's like parents that follow their kids everywhere to try and catch them before they fall. Or, hey, don't do that. Don't. It's kids, they're very resilient and tough and elastic when they're little. They a fall when you're 3-4-year-old. That fall becomes a lot worse when you're 10, 11, you've never took a fall before, and you've never learned, if I do that, I'm going to get hurt. You can get up a little bit higher on a tree before you fall or whatever. That's a natural learning process just through play, and letting your kids actually, obviously don't be irresponsible and let them go running through traffic. I'm not saying that, but I like to let my daughter, she loves to, if we, forgot to get, we're running out of milk, she loves to go get her backpack on and ride her bike to the store. She goes through the neighborhood and then out on the sidewalk along the main road and go buy the milk, put it in her back. It gives her a sense of confidence. Yeah. She's 9, but shows her she can go do things out on her own. The world's not that scary of a place if if you're intentional about what you're doing, and it's a confidence builder. Our kids walk or ride their bike to school just to know, hey, I learn the way to get to and from, and this is what I have to do. We just have a little bit small responsibilities out on their own, and the sense of accomplishment that they get from that, and they're way more confident to go out, and their friends will come over and be like, hey, can we go to the park? And, oh, yeah, sure, go play at the school park. And they're like, well, what, you're not the kid, their friends like, but you're not going to come? I'm like, no, it's just, it's just right across the street. You guys stick together, look out for each other, use the crosswalk, but we got to have a parent. And it's like, no, they're like, no, it's more fun. Let's go. We can go. And they're just so nervous about it because they have an adult with them all the time, and it's like letting your kids go out and be a little bit of independence helps them build confidence in themselves
totally
so much. And I think it's huge.
I think it's those little journeys that we talk about, letting your kids go to the park, letting your daughter go to the grocery store to get the milk, letting my older boys go camping by themselves. It's those little journeys right there to prepare them for the big journey that's called life. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have any of the little journeys to fall back on for experience, they have no clue what the hell they're doing when they get out there in life. And they're more apt to messing up a lot more, making more mistakes and making bad choices because they didn't get the opportunity to make those mistakes when they were kids and when they were under your supervision so that you could help correct them on those mistakes. Instead, they have to go make those mistakes at 18, 19, and 20 years old, where some of those mistakes might...
consequences are a lot more severe.
Correct, and they could lead to other things. And so I think this has just been a great conversation tonight, Dane, and I really hope that you enjoy it so that maybe this could be something that you're a regular guest and maybe even a co-host eventually here at the Wolfpack at LWN Network. But
it's been fun.
I want to give you your final thought here. That's something I always give every one of my guests and co-hosts for tonight, and it could be anything that you want your final thought to be, something that we forgot, you left out, or something you want to leave the audience to hear tonight. But we've had a lot of people come in here and make some great comments, and I appreciate all of our mods tonight, and for everybody who's hit that like button and shared us out. Really appreciate it. Wolfpack has always been something I've been very fond of and always wanted to do, and we've done a few of them now. Neil and I and Joel's joined us, and we've had other guests join us as well, but something that I want to do on a regular basis because I really feel like having alpha male conversations is a forgotten art. And most people are busy when they get together. They're busy doing one of these the whole time. They don't even have conversation anymore, and they don't talk. And so being examples of godly men, being examples of how we should communicate and how we have perspective through our relationships with Christ makes an impact on our wives, on our children, on our families, friends, coworkers, and everyone around us, because being an alpha, you have to be a leader. And even in the home, not all men can be those type of leaders. So it's important that we raise our young men to be those. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can go ahead and give us your final thought.
Yeah, well, actually, you holding up that phone kind of gave me one. It's a big thing for me and my wife is to keep our children's screen time to a minimum. It is so easy now with iPads and TVs and phones and all to just let them, because it can be easier sometimes. You're busy, you have something to get done, to just let them turn the TV on, hand them an iPad, let them play a game, and hours can go by and they're quiet. And so, they're out of my hair. But you can see the difference in my children when they've spent a couple hours on TV versus when they've been outside playing or doing work, in their attitude, their kindness towards their mother, their short fuse. It's amazing, especially with my oldest son, Nash. He can become a different person if he's getting too much screen time. So we're huge on, they're not having phones until they're well into their teens, and social media is a complete non-starter for them, because I just don't think kids are adapted and prepared to handle all that social pressure of social media constantly. They never can escape it if they're on a phone all the time. And social media, especially young girls, they constantly have this social pressure of other girls judging or whether they got likes or not. And just let them be a kid and enjoy their life, get outside, feel some grass, run around and get dirty, fall, get hurt and get back up. That's a huge one for us. And then as talking about being a man and a father, I think it's so important to show your children that you have values that you're willing to stand up for. And there's certain things that you'll say no, just say no to, and that you're willing to go confront it and say, actually call somebody out, people that have influence in your children's life, and say, no, we're not doing that.
Yep.
And either it's going to change or they're not going to be a part of it. And just being willing to take a stand on it, it shows your children that there are some things that are worth fighting for and worth standing up. Like, we want to be Christ-like and show love, but part of being Christ-like is speaking the truth in love. Do it with as much kindness as possible, but also, like I like to say, Jesus chased around the moneylenders and flipped the tables over and chased them around with a whip when they were defiling the temple. Like, righteous anger is not a bad thing, and I think it has a huge impact on your kids if you're willing to say that there are important things and values that are worth standing up to, and even making a sacrifice for, and just saying, hey, whatever circumstance we may like in this work good for us, but if that's going to be going on, we're not going to be a part of it, and we're going to try and change it. But I'm going to protect my children from that, because there's just certain things. Kids are equipped to handle falls and hard things, but things that get into their mind and that they're not capable of handling, like being exposed to pornography too soon. A kid, if it sexualizes them too early, you just cannot get that innocence back. You toughen them up and get them resilient in the certain ways we talked about, but also preserving that little innocence of a child and not exposing them to debauchery or just negative, degrading ideas like, certain progressive and DEI and all the LGBTQ agenda. Like, I think kids are not equipped to handle it, and they want to be loving and kind. And if they're being told that, hey, in order to be kind, loving, you have to accept these things that are clearly stated in the Bible are not okay and they lead to bad things, and it's with an authority figure like a teacher, they'll accept it because they've been told to trust that and listen to that teacher. You tell your kids to go to school and listen and be respectful, and if they're teaching them things, they're going to listen and they're going to believe it. Yep. And I think you got being willing to say no and stand up to those things and call it out when it's wrong. As a father, it's huge. I think your kids need to see that.
Yeah, I think it's critical. I agree with you that kids see their father standing up and standing up for what's right, and also standing up for what's wrong and saying, no, it's not going to cut. It's not good enough. So thank you for your final thought, Dane, and thanks for joining us tonight. My final thought is this. If you guys enjoy Wolfpack, if you enjoyed tonight's episode, don't be afraid to hit that like button, smash it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed to any of our channels. More importantly, share us out. Every time you guys give us an opportunity to be seen by somebody else by sharing us on your Facebook, on your X, on your Rumble accounts or any of that stuff, gives other people an opportunity to find us. And we've had a lot of people over the years who have lost us with all the takedowns and all the censorship. So it'd be nice to allow them to find us again. But thank you for joining us tonight, as always. And as we check out here tonight, you guys have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Mike. That was fun.